Ulonkata bati yada tó yẹ kó máa da ifá. Inú tó yẹ kó jẹun ló fi bí pa. Ọba tálá, ọba takuntakun. Ṣàngó, Èṣù, Ògún, Ọya, Ọ̀ṣun. Ìwọ ló ń bọ̀ nílé. Kí ni ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ tán ṣe nílé yìí o? Ó jẹ́ lọ jára rẹ̀.
Alafia, peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Welcome to another episode of the African Spirituality Experience. I am your host, Orisha Bami, and today I'm joined by none other than the master teacher, Baba Yasir Ra Hotep. Peace and blessings. How you doing, Baba?
Peace and blessings, brother Orisha. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I can't complain at all. Listen, I'm gonna start out by saying first and foremost, what my pops always told me, son, they can't keep a good man down. That's one of my favorite sayings that he says, man. They can't keep a good man down. Cause boy, they tried to keep us down with with tonight's show from the first time, which I'm gonna own that. That was on me mixing up my time zones, and then tonight I mixed it up, but I figured it out and I got it right. But then the technical difficulties crept there, man, which is something that, I deal with a lot too on the platform. We're just trying to get the doggone equipment to work. So it is what it is. But with that, like I said, they can't keep a good man down. Look, we still got the tribe still up at midnight on my end and 11 something your end, man. Still ready to get this work, man. So I'm ready to do the work. And like the tribe is here ready to get this work. So I'm ready, bye-bye. So with that, man, first and foremost, I want to thank you because this was on my spirit. I received a call not too long after we were supposed to start the original show from one of my elders. And for those who've been following the channel for a minute, they've probably heard me speak about this because it was a divine moment that took place probably about maybe a month ago, where I remember I was sitting at I think I was in my living room and I was sitting at like the little tray table and I had my laptop trying to do some work. And I smelled this fragrance that kind of came past my nose. I'm like, yo, that's different. So I spoke because intuitively I felt like I knew that was like the presence of an ancestor or some sort of, guardian spirit, someone who was in a different realm. I felt like came to pay me a visit. And when that happened, I spoke like, hey, how you doing? Or I can't remember what I said, peace and blessings, whatever it was, just to kind of acknowledge the presence of another energy in the room. And when that happened, within like 2 or 3 minutes later, I remember getting a call from an elder, and he was like, "Man, how you doing?" I'm doing good, man. He's like, I was like, "How you doing?" He's like, "I'm doing good." He's like, "But the ancestors, they told me to reach out to you." He's like, "Everything okay? You doing okay? You doing all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'm good. I appreciate it." Da da da. So long story short, I wasn't all the way okay. At that point, I was dealing with a lot. I mean, a lot. Like, there was a lot going on in my personal life that I still was, battling through, but I wasn't letting that stop me. But I say all that to say, there was some things going on with my wife. There was just a lot of stuff going on. So, but it was like, we're going to fight through this moment. But I say all that to say, the power of the ancestors is undeniable. And I mean, absolutely undeniable. And one of the things that I'm going to continuously to be intentional about moving forward with is giving people their flowers, because we don't know, if we're going to be here tomorrow. So I say all that to say, that same elder who called me to check on me that day when I was in, a pretty tough space, personally, he called me tonight right before the show, and he went through some things that I didn't know about that it shocked me. You know what I mean? But so I'm going to, ask to try to send some prayers up for Baba. I'm not going to mention his name because I'm not sure if he wants to remain, out of the public eye and all that. And I respect that. So therefore, if he's cool with it, I will. But either way, if y'all could just send some prayers up, man, for the elder, because, we never know what day we're going to go back home. But I want to make sure I spend this day celebrating and saluting you and all those who have been a part of the tribe and a part of this movement that we call the African Spirituality Experience, man, because that kind of threw me for a loop to get that call today, especially knowing the last time I spoke to him, he was I feel like he was an emissary or a messenger for the ancestors, checking on me in a time when I was, in a tough spot that nobody knew. So it's like, that's how I feel like not only the presence of the creator, but the presence of the ancestors is undeniable. And so I wanted to take that time to salute him and just let him know that I appreciate him, and that not only do I have him in my prayers, but I'm asking for the tribe to put him in our prayers as well. But I also want to take that time to salute and appreciate you, Baba Yasir, because I haven't even known you not even a year yet, but the fact that you've taken the time to come on this platform and share your knowledge and share your wisdom and to pour into us and to pour into myself, on top of just being somebody who I consider to be real, like all the way through and through, like who I have the utmost love and respect for. And it's a little bit of time that I've known you. So I want to say on behalf of myself and on behalf of all those who you've served, which is a lot of people with doing what you do, I appreciate you. I appreciate your work. I salute you. And I give thanks to you for taking the time to pour into not only myself, but to those who watch this channel and this platform, man. And so I want to just start off by giving flowers and giving thanks to the elders and the ancestors, those who paved the way. So with that, now I'm ready to get this party started, man, because that was on my spirit heavy to get that call today. So I want to make sure that I pay it forward to you and to him and to all those who have paved the way for me to be here today. I really truly appreciate each and every one of y'all.
Well, I appreciate everything that you're saying, brother. And you know, no matter how old you are, you have to always be cognizant of the fact that, you know, you never know when you're going to take your last breath or when your last day on this plane of existence is going to be. So, you know, people use the term elder, but, you know, I mean, I guess I'm an elder because I've been around a long time, but I don't feel old. I don't feel like I'm coming towards the end of the road like some of my friends do. You know, they feel like, oh, so like this past weekend, I had to go out to Denver to hang out with a couple of my friends. It was three of us supposed to hook up. You know, it was three of us who've been friends since we were in grade school. And so one brother who really pushed us to get together, you know, he's always telling me, well, you know, you never know when you're going to leave. And, you know, you never know when your last day going to be. We need to get together and blah, blah, blah. You know, we had a good run. I'd be like, man, I'm still running. You know, I'm not at the end of the road or anything, you know. So, but it was very gratifying to, you know, hang out with my friends. We've been friends since we were in second grade. You know, that started in the early 1960s, you know. And so, so I'm just thinking about all the things all the different eras of history that we went through. When we were born during the time of Jim Crow, you know, and then we went through, you know, civil rights movement, you know, just the nuclear being afraid. We used to have to get underneath our desk, you know, and when they thought that the Russians may drop a nuclear bomb on us, you know, we had to get underneath our desk like that was going to save us, you know, like we had to practice getting underneath the desk, you know. And other things that we had to go through, you know, going through Vietnam, going through all the assassinations from Malcolm X to King and to the going through COINTELPRO and all those assassinations then. You know, it's just a lot of stuff that we've been through, that all of us go through. And as you know, when you live 70, 80, 90 years, you're going to go through a whole bunch more stuff than what you ever imagined that you would go through. And the world is not really in a place that, you know, any of us wanted to be, you know, because we were doing things, being activists and, you know, organizing and doing things in order to prevent some of the stuff that's going on now. But, you know, different things happen, things rise and fall.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, so we just flowing with the flow.
I say. Nah, that's what's up. Nah, I appreciate it, man. Like I said, I really do. And that wasn't initially where we were gonna go to start, but like I said, it was on my spirit. And so, you know, I just really wanted to share that. But with that though, man, we got a lot going on to be grateful for and to be you know, I'm excited for. We got the Soul Fest coming up in July in Chicago, celebrating 50 years of you know, in the not only the Kemetic yoga space, but in the healing space and, you know, just doing all the work that you've done. And I recall, I don't remember if it was after the second or third interview that we had, but I remember you sent me some information in regards to some of your work, and I got to kind of dive in and read some of your material, man. And I remember on the last one I think we did, I actually read some of it verbatim because I was impressed by the think the wrong thing went up. I was impressed by the inspiration of like how you came about into your journey and like what you've overcome to get to where you are in your journey. So with that, there's been a lot of different things that I've kind of seen happening and unfolding in real time right now, what we see in the world. But those who I feel like that are in the forefront right now, like leading the charge and like leading, the forefront of revolution, of healing, of unity, of guidance, of teaching, leadership, all those things, influence. There's a lot of people who go through a lot of things in order to get to where they are now. So can you kind of share how for you the process of overcoming adversity plays a role into who you are now? Because those who, I don't know how many people like know your whole journey, but for me personally, just being introduced to you not more than a year ago, but then to have the opportunity to read and study some of your work and then talk to you as well, like I knew I loved what I saw and I respected it and I appreciated it because you're kind of creating and connecting and like making a bridge for those who are in certain parts of their life and their journey to those who are starting, especially when it comes to the Kemetic yoga space. How did overcoming adversity play a role into who and what you are now as what a lot of people will consider a master teacher, a healer, a master yogi? Like you've accomplished a lot of things in your journey. How did going through adversity and tough times kind of help shape and mold you to, what you are now? Or did that play a role into who you are and what you have become now with 50 years of doing this work?
Well, I was talking to my friends about something similar to this over the weekend. And we were talking about how people become, so damaged,
Mm,
from their experiences, and we were sort of saying, well, we went through so many different things in our lives, in terms of loss, but I don't know, we just had a capacity within us to just keep moving and to overcome it, to not dwell on things, to just keep on pushing. And so, Black people, African people, we've had to develop a high level of one of my favorite words, resilience.
yes,
You
sir.
know, and so we have resilience, but resilience is something it may come just naturally to you, but from doing yoga, it's sort of it's sort of instilled in you. You sort of create or develop your resilience because resilience is the capacity to withstand um, various pressures
Mm,
and various traumas, various negative experiences,
mm,
and to not only to withstand them, but also to create behaviors and ways of thinking that allow you to master those adverse experiences and to turn them around where you can turn a disadvantage into an advantage. And so we learned that through our practice of yoga because we fortify ourselves with because number one, we look at what we consume. So we consume foods that are going to nourish our nervous system. We consume foods that are going to develop our brains, keep our brains in a healthy state. And people don't really think about that. They think about, I'm going to eat some food because it tastes good and so on and so forth. But what effect is that food having on your nervous system? What effect is it having on the development and the continued health of your brain? And so, when you look at the foods that you eat, you have to make sure that you're eating foods that are that are nourishing to your entire system, your endocrine system, which is a system of glands, definite glands in your body that are going to be have a positive effect upon your nervous system, your circulatory system, so on and so forth. So, but also, so that's the first thing. Do you eat correctly? Do you do things to yourself? Do you smoke cigarettes? Do you smoke a whole lot of weed? You know, and I'm not saying don't never smoke weed, but I'm saying how much do you smoke? And do you just think that smoking weed is irrelevant and it doesn't have any effect upon you from a physiological or biochemical level? So what do you do to counteract some of the effects like becoming dehydrated or, you know, limiting your vitamin C or your B complex and so on and so forth, you know? So those are things that you have to think about. The other thing is the breath. You know, we hear people talk about being dehydrated in the holistic health field. You hear people talk about the need to make sure that you're hydrated a lot, you know, and that's very true. But from a yogic perspective, you know, we are oxygen deprived, or we are air deprived, or we are deprived of energy, the life force, which is contained within the air. And so we often are not getting those things that that develop what we would call the chi or the prana or the ankh force or the second, which is the life force and energy that moves and operates in the body. So not only do we need to consume foods that contribute to the development of that internal energy, but we also need to be involved with practices that give us the breath and that allows us to be able to circulate and move the breath. And I taught yoga class tonight, and the first thing that we did was do exercises that develop our awareness of the chi, our awareness of the life force and energy that moves through the body, you know. And so energy moves in a certain way in the body. And so we need to know, well, how does energy move? You know, because just like if we don't know how our car works, we don't know how to fix it, or we don't know, you know, we don't even know how to get it started, you know. So we need to know, how does energy operate in the body? You know, we have a general idea that we have a heart, and the heart pumps blood. And when we breathe, we're breathing in and out air. But there's something more to it. There's the life force. So the more that we absorb this life force that exists within the body, and the more that we fortify that life force through our yoga movements, postures, and breathing, the greater our resilience is going to be. And so by that, I mean that when you are confronted with a stressful situation, when you are confronted with trauma, even when you are confronted with something that is very grievous, like the loss of a child, the loss of somebody that you're very close to unexpectedly, you know, you have to be able to maintain your ability to focus, your ability to stay on track, and not to allow grief, not to allow grief and other emotions to get the best of you. So the thing that I observe now is that we as Black people, you know, we have a lot of emotions that go unchecked. And so anger is one of them. You know, we're very angry. You know, I'm angry, I'm pissed off, you know, but I use yoga in my breathing and my meditation, my movements and postures to mitigate those things. Because if you are not, you know, if you're alive, you're going and you're observing and you're a sentient being, you're observing and you're seeing and you're feeling and you're picking up the energy from all these different events and negative events that's going on the planet now, you know, as well as positive events. But if you're picking up and you're being sensitive to these things, you can't help but to be affected. So being affected is one thing, but what do you do to keep yourself from being negatively affected, what do you do to keep yourself from falling into habits where you are medicating yourself, unconsciously against these different events and ideas and experiences that we have. And so even down to the foods that we eat again, we often are eating those foods as a way of medicating ourselves. We distract our brain by eating certain foods and stimulating the taste buds. We drink. I know a lot of young people. I work with young people for a long time. I would say the majority of the young people I have worked with who were had less of means, people, ones who were suffering the most from poverty and the miseducation system, they smoked the most. Even though they were learning yoga, they would still use tobacco, cigarettes, in order to, as a means of dealing with their anxiety and their depression and things like that. So, so the main thing I'm gonna say is that we have to have a consistent, everyday practice of yoga. When I practice yoga, when you practice yoga, when anybody practices yoga, they feel better. And that feeling better is what you want to achieve every day. So every day I practice yoga because I want to feel good every day. Just like the person who gets addicted to drugs, whether it is cocaine, whether it is fentanyl or what you call that stuff, methamphetamine, they're always looking for that hit to get themselves to get that feeling that's very elusive because you're always looking for that same feeling you got the first time that you could never quite get back again. So that's part of the addictive process. And so the thing with yoga is that every time you do it, you're going to get that hit. You're going to get that positive high. And you're going to get that positive feeling of empowerment. You're going to feel good. You're going to feel like I can conquer anything. You're going to feel like I have the resilience to overcome, because when you feel bad, when you feel like you can't really overcome certain things, or when you feel like life is all turned against you, that is nothing but a biochemical reaction in your brain. So when you practice yoga, you change your biology, you change your biochemistry within your brain. So that's the thing. So we need to understand yoga, breath work, meditation. We need to understand these things from not just from a physical level, but from a excuse me, I should have some water with me.
You good. You good. Matter of fact, go ahead and get your water because I got a couple of questions, but I'll go ahead and grab it while you do that. So I'm gonna go right back to the divine. Like that's how everything happens. So excuse me. Like to go right back to where we started the show. We were supposed to have it last week, right? And then I forgot which day, but one day last week, there was a miscommunication on my behalf of the time zones. I think is what kind of messed me up. Where I threw it, I threw the links and all that out at a different time, but I wasn't thinking because I'm used to most of the people that I interview are on the east and you're on the central. So that happened, right? So then now today, that's almost the same damn thing happened. Like the time zone. Then I caught it. Like, oh, okay. Oh, shoot. Okay, I got to do it for 11:30 or whatever. Do that. We get on there. Then the technology ain't working. I'm like, man, you gotta be kidding me. Like, you kidding me? Like, what the hell is going on? So it's like all these different things happen to try to detour us or try to throw us off track or to try to slow us down. But if we do everything that you just so eloquently said, none of that can really stop us because you're not the only person I've had these problems with. Like when it comes to having these shows. Like I ain't gonna say always, but a lot of times there's some sort of things that's going on that I feel like are trying to stop what the divine has in store, but it's not going to stop that, because what's meant to be is going to be. You can't and you will never stop the creator. Nobody. I don't care who you are, what you do, whatever. Witchcraft, sorcery, wizardry, black magic. I don't give a damn about none of that. Whatever you're doing, you can't stop the creator, because the creator is going to make sure that whatever was created to do or be what it was supposed to do and be is going to be, because the creator created it to be. So I feel like this moment speaks to that, because everything you just shared is so needed. But what's even more amazing to me is that right before we did this show, I posted in the private community that we was having a private community call. And I asked, like, if anybody had any suggestions on what topics that, wanted to be spoke upon. And you literally spoke upon two of the topics that I said I'm working on, trying to get that information in here. And that's with another guest that I ain't even had on here yet. And then here you come, drop literally what was asked and requested for. When you talk about the diet, you're talking about like with the energy and the holistic health and the healing and all that stuff. I'm like, yo, this is amazing. So that, to me, that's the power of the creator. So that's what I'm like, even like when things try to happen or try to stop it or block it or whatever the case may be, it might slow it down a little bit. It might make it pivot. It might make it have to, call an audible on the play. But you ain't going to stop what the creator created, because it's going to happen by any means necessary. And I just give thanks, because it's like, to me, that's like even more divine into how like everything's aligning in regards to not only tonight showing what we have, but what we are working towards in the future. And I was able to convert all the images. So I definitely want to get into what Soul Fest and then what we got going on with the tours and Kemetic and all that too. But I just wanted to share that with you, because that's just kind of like happening in real time. Like we're seeing how the divine works. Not to mention when I spoke about with the ancestors being in literally the same room as me, and then having an elder call me like as a messenger of the ancestors. So you can't make this up. Like this is happening in real time. Like we this ain't rehearsed or scripted. Like we really, like, this is what it is. And so I'm grateful for that, man, because to me, that's what the creator is, making his presence known, that the creator is always there and always present and always in control. Even when it doesn't look like it, the creator is still in control. And I'm seeing that like right now, tonight, as we speak.
Well, first of all, first thing is that a lot of times the simplest answer is the answer. So,
Sure.
What have you put into your body?
Mm.
Have you taken enough breaths today? Have you done deep breathing? It's like people take it for granted. When we started off our yoga class today, we just stood up, put our feet shoulders width apart, took an inhalation, and as we exhale, we bent forward. That's a standing forward bending pose. And then we held it for like 3 breaths, and then we came back up, right? Just a simple pose like that, a simple posture it can change your whole day. It can change your whole outlook on that particular day or at that particular time, because it's so simple. And so those are things that we need to understand, that it's in the simplicity. Do I have the stuff that I need before I, when I work with kids and before, like I come into a community organization and I'm working with young people, I don't just start talking to them. I bring them some food first, and I put food into their stomach so that they can be satisfied. I don't see how I can talk to somebody about how they need to correct their behavior and things like that if they hungry. How can they hear me if they hungry? It's a felony to me for them to even be hungry, for them to go without food, for them to be in a society where somebody doesn't even care that they have food or not, let alone a place to live or a roof over their head. So it's those basic things that we have to be concerned about. So taking care of yourself, eating the right foods, getting the right amount of water or fluids into your body. those things are important. Your body is whatever you put into it. You're putting the raw ingredients into your body when you eat food. So I'm just emphasizing that. Moving your body. I have a lady that comes to my class on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and she's in a wheelchair.
Wow.
She has multiple issues with her body and multiple conditions, but you know what? She comes every Tuesday and Thursday, and she sits in her chair. She does all the breathing exercises, and then she does whatever movements, anything bending forward or whatever. She does all of that stuff on her, as much as she can. She don't say, "Oh, I'm in a wheelchair. I'm just going to stay at home and watch, whatever, watch TV or something." She comes there, and she just wants to be in the environment. See, that's another part of the science that people don't understand. When I was first started doing yoga, I would imagine I did not have the ability physically to do a whole lot of different positions and postures and stuff because my body wasn't at that point. So before I got to that point, what did I do? I visualized myself going through these different movements and postures. And then from that visualization that I created in my mind became reality. So as I continue, but it didn't happen just because I thought about it or I imagined it. It happened, my body changed because I practiced, but creating the image in my mind of myself achieving this particular level of expertise with my body. That's what helped to motivate me. So when I was practicing and I got 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, that motivation to keep going and to keep practice was already there. Plus, because of the fact that it made me feel good. So I tell people I practice for 8 hours, 8 to 12 hours a day, right? And so people say, "Oh, how can you do that?" Well, how can Mike Tyson, practice his boxing skills when he was the champion? How could he do that? He did that for 8 hours, 8 to 12 hours a day. How can Michael Jordan do what he did? How does anybody who's an artist, a musician, a fine artist, they are involved with their art for at least half a day every day, in some form or some context, So if you're going to do something, you want to be good at it, you have to put forth the time and the effort and stop thinking, "Oh, well, I got to go here and do that. And I got to go and I'm just going to do yoga on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and the rest of the days I'm going to go have pizza and drink beer and stuff." You got to decide what's important. You know, and even hanging out with my friends over the weekend. They smoking their cigars, and they feel like that's a sign of their success in life, which is all fine, and still smoking the cigarettes. I had to give up all that stuff, and I introduced all my friends who I used to hang out with and get high with and drink with and all that stuff. I introduced all of them to yoga, but only a very few of them actually took up yoga, you know, and many of them have passed away. And I'm still, I'm not no old man, I'm an older man. I'm older than I was before, but I'm not like deteriorating. People think that age means deterioration. It doesn't mean deterioration. You know,
Mm-mm.
you don't have to deteriorate just because you have a chronological age and you have a biological age. So when I go to the doctor, when I go to the Western doctor, they check me out. They say, "Oh, you got the all your vitals and signs and all that stuff are those of a 21-year-old. That's what they tell me. And so that's because I haven't been drinking and smoking, and I don't eat KFC, you know, I don't eat any of that stuff, just do what I do, naturally. So, so at any rate, and and it's not like I don't have little issues and problems and things that bother me, because I do, but I'm always over to overcome them and fix them. If I got an ache or a pain or an illness, I can always correct it and it'll go away. And I say, oh, that wasn't nothing permanent. That was just some temporary little thing I had to go through.
I say. Nah, listen, look, you dropping, matter of fact, I'm going to bring another one. You're dropping gems and jewels and diamonds all over the place. Because like I said, it's so divine, man. Like to hear, those like comments or requests, for this type of information, not knowing you was gonna go here with this tonight. I knew it was in you and I knew that that's what you do, but I didn't know that you was gonna go here with tonight's conversation. So it's all divine, man. But that's a real thing in everything that you said. But I was taking notes, and there were several things that just from your last response that I have questions or comments that I feel like can take us to a whole nother level in regards to the conversation. When it comes to like habits, because that was the thing that I took from the first part was habits. And you were saying like your friends and, still doing like the smoking and the drinking, and then working with the youth. Like I worked with the youth as well. And I remember recently, within the last couple of weeks, I remember having a conversation with a young brother who initially he was saying he felt like he had to smoke to operate. And I'm like, for real? And so that was part of the conversation. But where I see the divine alignment is like everything that I shared with him was you just kind of shared within that your response to that question, because I kind of like let him know like, okay, you can do other things to get the euphoria or the the experience of living in that whatever that state is to you, that plant, that tree, that flower gives to you, right? So for me personally, when you were talking about meditating and yoga, I'm sorry, when you're talking about yoga and like the diet and all that, I'm thinking about how I feel when I either meditate or when I work out in the gym, right? Every time I do either one of those, I get a high, like a real high. I think the gym, I get a more of a high from working out in the gym than I do from meditating, but I get both. Like both of them give me a high. And so my message to him was like, yo, you don't have to smoke weed all day, every day to feel like living in that euphoric moment. You can get highs from other things that are actually more beneficial for you. And so one of the things that I shared was like the practice of working out. So every time when I work out, I get a high. Like I get high, like literally like high like a kite, where I'm like riled up, like my energy is flowing. I'd be turned up, like, I'd be ready, like I'd be ready to get it in. But it's a real high, and it's a healthy high because everything is functioning properly. Like you're getting your body, your blood, everything is functioning properly. But then even when you talk about yoga, that's something I haven't even started yet. Like I can't wait to get it in with you, on the trip and, and commit and all that good stuff. But meditating alone, just for me, that's a spiritual high. Every time I have a great meditation, I come out of that meditation with a spiritual high because I feel like that is the form of exercising my spirit or exercising my ori or exercising my mind's eye or exercising the eye of Heru or the eye of Ra, like whatever you want to call it, pituitary gland, like all that, like that's exercising that extra sensory perception vehicle. So now it's like I get the same thing. So everything that you're saying, what does that look like if we do all of those things? If we eat healthy, if we don't drink, if we don't smoke, if we meditate, if we do yoga, if we work out consistently, like all these things. I'm gonna shut up. What does that look like? I'm gonna get off the screen.
It's gonna look like so a powerful race of people, who are unstoppable. Most of the things that we do that most of the things that occur that stop us are things that we create ourselves because we're not doing the right thing. We're not living in the right way. So you have to combine all those things together. Just like, I teach a lot of people. I've been teaching for a long time. And I have a lot of students who really believe in smoking marijuana, right? And so they they said, oh, when I smoke marijuana and I do yoga, I could do yoga better. And what I try to get people to see is that if you did your yoga and you do certain practices and you just took yourself off of all other external substances, that there's a certain power in the practices that we do. See, and people use the word yoga. See, we have yoga that can just be, I'm going to stretch my hamstring. You have yoga that just means that just like I'm going to do some positions. And they're good for you. All yoga, no matter what you do, is all good. But there are certain techniques and certain practices. So in Kemetic yoga and in yoga skills method, we incorporate what we call best practices. So it's not just, oh, I'm going to do this position and that position. How are you going to do it? How are you going to do your breathing? Are you going to breathe into your chest? Are you going to breathe into your, the middle part of your torso? Or are you going to breathe all the way down into your lower abdomen? And if you try to breathe into your lower abdomen 3 inches below your navel and you have difficulty, what practices are you going to do that are going to allow you to achieve that proper way of yogic breathing? See, because most of the people out here, I'm not saying everybody, of course, but a lot of the people out here who's teaching yoga, that's teaching basic yoga, they don't really train you to breathe properly. So, and to breathe yogically the way you're supposed to breathe, because it takes development. Most people don't understand that the purpose of doing movements and postures, doing like the sun salutation, forward bending poses, backward bending pose, spinal twist, triangle poses, all those things, the purpose of those movements and postures are to enhance the respiratory system and to increase the capacity of the respiratory system so that we have greater control over our breath, the amount of breath that we're able to take in to our lungs and then circulate into the cells of our body and into the molecules and atoms of our body are increasing, right? So we want to increase that capacity for the amount and the ability to circulate more effectively. So we want to get to the point that when you take a breath in, you can feel that energy rise from 3 inches below your navel, come up the back of your head, come into the middle of your forehead. Every time I take a breath, if I just breathe in, I can pull that energy up, not just up to the top of my head, but into my third eye. Every time I exhale, I can project the energy into my hands, through my arms, into my hands, down my legs, into my feet. Because when I practice my yoga, I practice with that intention. When I practice my yoga, I use the technique. No matter what movement, no matter what posture I'm doing what we call microcosmic orbit. I'm drawing the energy up, bringing it to the crown, bringing it to the middle of the forehead. Every time I breathe in, every time I exhale, no matter what movement or posture I'm doing, or if I'm doing still meditation, I'm sending the energy through my arms, into my hands, down my legs, and into my feet. Okay? And so this is the intentional technique that we have to develop. So when I do movements because they make my lungs expand. My lungs get bigger. My lungs are literally going to become larger. Okay. When I do certain postures, I try to squeeze my internal organs. Okay. So by squeezing the internal organs, I'm increasing those organs' ability to function. So organs are supposed to be pliable. They're supposed to be squeezed and expand, right? And so I see the question up here about prana or chi, those are just words that mean the same thing. They mean life force. That's all it is, life force, you know. And so that's what I'm talking about, life force. The prana, the chi, the sekum, the onk is all contained in the air that we take in. It goes by different names in different cultures and different times and stuff like that. But the bottom line is that it's the life force. You are born with a certain amount of life force that your body has. And so while you are alive, you're not supposed to just use up your life force. You are supposed to cultivate it. You're supposed to add to that life force, that internal energy that you have, which is stored within your body. You want to keep adding into it and amplifying that energy. But because we don't do that, we never know what our true power is. We never know what our true potential is, because it is the accumulation of that energy, the accumulation and the cultivation of that energy, that life force, that helps to enhance our spiritual ability. Okay. It helps to enhance our spirituality. So when you practice yoga in this correct way, your ability to feel, to know something before it happens, it amplifies, it increases, because you're changing your vibrational frequency. So everything is vibration. Okay. That's the something like the third principle of Tahuti. Everything vibrates. And so when you vibrate at a certain frequency, that allows you to receive information the same way these devices receive information. You can see picture and you can hear audio, right? And vibration also allows you to transmit. So the vibrational frequency that you are operating from determines your ability to receive information and to transmit information. Okay. And so we use terms like ESP, extrasensory perception. But we know that from African science perspective, whether you're talking about traditional African religion or African spiritual, I like to use the term not religion, but spiritual science, because that's what we're really working with when we're talking about the African sciences. We talk about African spiritual science. So these sciences are designed to enhance and make you, to allow you to reach your full natural potential. This is not supernatural. So they call it extrasensory. It's not extra. It's part of who you are. And so you're supposed to be able to know something before it happens. You're supposed to be able to transmit your thought to somebody else. Okay. You're supposed to be able to send energy from your body to heal another person. Those are natural things that we're supposed to be able to do. And the true practice of yoga gives us those abilities, the true practice. So when people come to train with us, they're challenged. Even if they've already done yoga before, they are challenged to take yoga to the next level if they really want to see what their true potential is, because yoga has been so watered down by the mainstream society that it's mostly just stretching and doing this and doing that, and all of these different words and stuff that they be using. The words are irrelevant. What is your practice like? You can put whatever words you want to put to it, but you can call it Kemetic yoga, you can call it whatever, but it's the technique that you're using that's going to determine whether it's useful to you or not, or the degree of utility. Because everything is useful, but where you going to take it to?
That's powerful. I love that, because like right now, I'm this year, one of my goals, well, actually, two of my goals this year. One, it was introduced to me that I was supposed to receive my, I guess, like initiation or ceremony or whatever, like to pretty much take my practice of Reiki healing to the next level in regards to like getting actual training and going through, what I'm saying, like the process of it. And so I got a book that I've been studying, this Reiki book or what have you. But it spoke about the ability of having the power of transmuting energy to being able to heal others, right? And I know that that's a real thing because shout out to Milagros Wellness. Shout out to my personal Reiki healer and Baba Astaria's Miraculi. Like I have two healers that I work with here personally that I've received Reiki sessions from, and both of their ceremonies and services was profound. Like it was dope because like I can't say that every time. I think I've had probably like maybe about 5 or 6 different Reiki sessions that I've had. And every single one of them, not only did I astral travel on a whole nother level, but I astral traveled, astral projected. I did a lot of things in the spiritual realm or in the, the universal conscious, I guess, aspect of experience. And it was dope, like each and every one of them. And so it was like, that was something that was kind of like, I guess, brought to my attention that I need to work on trying to accomplish this year. But when you said that, it made me spark the question as to, I think I might know where it might go, but where does the connection between Reiki and yoga and meditation come into play? Because I feel like all of them, I feel like they all gonna be at the same family reunion. Like, wait, like how did all that? Like, what? Can you answer that? Because I feel like I know you know, but how do you feel about that?
Yoga is the foundation of it all. If you practice Reiki, you're going to be a more powerful Reiki practitioner if it's built upon your experience with yoga. If you practice anything, it all starts with yoga because yoga begins with the breath. It begins with movements that open up the energy channels in your body. It works with making you sensitive and aware of your own life force. So if I simply take my hand like this and I can put it towards another person, they can feel their energy. I can feel the energy. But that energy generation, it comes from the fact that I'm a yoga practitioner and I put the purest, cleanest ingredients into my body. And I don't clog up my energy channels. So we have to begin with some basic information that we don't know about. And we have a physical body and we have an energetic body. Our energy body is not physical, but it has its own set of anatomy and physiology to it. And so people commonly use terms like chakras to talk about these energy wheels that generate the movement of energy that causes the energy and life force to move, right? And then we have these energy channels that run through the body, okay? And so those energy channels are like vessels. And so we use terms in traditional Chinese medicine like meridians, right? We use terms like there's different words in different traditions, but people get caught up into the words. It's not the words, it's what is understanding the function of how your body operates and how your energy body operates is way more important than what word that you're using. So we know that we have vessels to which in our bodies to which energy flows. And we know that when we are under stress, when we are when we have anxiety, when we have anger, and so on and so forth, we know that those emotions cut off the flow of energy. So before you could become a Reiki, before you could become a really, really effective Reiki healer, you need to become a yogi, a yoga practitioner, And so when we say the word yoga, yoga encompasses everything. It encompasses meditation. It's not yoga and meditation. People hear the word yoga and they think, oh, that means you're going to do these positions and stand on your head and sit in a lotus position. Now, yoga is a complete system that involves the two most important things about yoga is your behaviors, things that you do on a positive level, and things that you don't do, that you refrain from. So they're called observances and abstentions, things that you abstain from and things that you do. Okay, that's what yoga. That's the bottom line of what yoga is. The breathing, the movements, the postures, those are built on top of that. So we know that from a Kemetic perspective, we don't use the terms observances and abstentions, which in Sanskrit they would say yamas and niyamas. We talk about ma'at because ma'at gives us our framework for understanding what things we should be doing and what things that we should be avoiding doing. Okay. And so we use the term ma'at because ma'at guides us. And so our goal in our practice of yoga from a Kemetic perspective is to become in balance and harmony with ma'at, to become a reflection of the principle of ma'at. And so when I use the term ma'at, I'm not necessarily talking about the 42 laws or the 42 negative confessions or the 42 principles of ma'at. I'm talking about the understanding of ma'at as a worldview, not different rules and regulations, but ma'at as a worldview. Ma'at says that the nature of the universe is one of balance. So that's one of the first principles of ma'at. Balance, harmony, justice, order. First thing probably to say is order. That there's a certain order to everything. So if I'm eating all the food and drinking and doing all this stuff, I'm out of balance with ma'at. Ma'at is the fabric of the universe. Ma'at is the fabric of reality. So I want to be in harmony with that flow of ma'at, not in opposition to it. Okay. And so people who know a little bit about Kemetic language and stuff, they may use the word isfit, right? To represent the idea of being out of balance with ma'at. So we want to be in balance. We want to. But how do you know what the order is? If you say ma'at means order, how do you know what order is? You have to experience that. What are you experiencing? You know, how do you know when you are experiencing ma'at? You know, so those are things that you have to understand. You have to spend some time integrating into your consciousness. When I first started doing yoga, even though I had a Black yoga teacher, we didn't hear, I would read yoga books and stuff because I'm a reader. I read all, I ain't gonna say all of them, but I read all the classic yoga books. I read all the great masters of yoga and so on and so forth. But years ago, when I would meditate, I would be meditating like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And then when I closed my eyes, I would see Shiva and Shakti and Krishna and stuff. I said, I don't want to see y'all. So I had to consciously replace those images of those Indian Hindu deities with ones that emerged from my own ancestors. I had to make a conscious decision, a conscious effort to replace all of that imagery that had been infused in my mind from the past. So I replaced them. I replaced them with images of Aset, with Heru, with Ra, with Tahuti, with men, Selket, Sekhmet, so on and so forth, right? So I had to make a conscious decision to liberate my subconscious from all of that indoctrination, because I didn't want to have nothing to do with it, right? And so that's their stuff. I'm going to deal with my stuff, my own ancestors, So, so I just think that's important. But again, importantly, you want to engage in practices that are done correctly. So in Kemetic yoga, we deal with what we call the yoga skills method. We did a brutal for breathing, geometric progression, and so on and so forth, right? Now I'm gonna say this about Reiki, and I'm not trying to be negative against Reiki because I think Reiki is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
You have other forms of moving energy to heal other people. And so you have another thing that people should, in addition to Reiki, they should check out called Pranic healing, Pranic healing, Pranic healing. And Pranic healing is very powerful. I've had Reiki treatments, but when I first got a Pranic healing treatment, it was on a whole nother level. And I've had Reiki treatments that were tremendous too, because a lot of it depends upon the practitioner, But pranic healing is something people should check out also, with all due respect.
I get it.
Yeah, because the people who practice pranic healing, they were taught by that master of that system. He said that he received his knowledge from Kemetic. And right. So, for example, you see people doing their hand like this. They say, they put their hand out like this, and they say they greet you with their wrist bent like that. You know what I'm talking about? They say Hotep, or they say Hete Pu, or they say whatever. They say some Kemetic term.
Mm-hmm.
But you see them bending their wrist like that.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I see it.
So I've been to Kemet almost 40 times, and I've never seen nobody on the wall, on none of the images, or none of the statues with their hand bent like this. I've never seen that.
Baba, whoa, wait. If you don't mind, That's been a common thing. And sometimes, like when people say something that I know is like profound in regards to like significance, and then, but I just want to like pause respectfully. I didn't want to interrupt, but I do want to pause because you don't. Well, I can't stress to you how much I'm looking forward to us taking this trip in August. Like I can't stress that to you because Kemet is on my vision board. It's something that I've been drawn to, or that's called me from the time I can remember. You know, the first exposure I've ever had to Kemet. I'm looking at a statue right now with a SAR and all set, and I'm looking at the hieroglyphs on the throne that they're sitting on, and I'm looking at an Ankh that represents the Kemetic culture. I'm looking at all the things that have always meant something very special to me. And I can't remember which show, but a show recently, I remember speaking about how I personally feel like the bust of King Tut is the most recognizable, most world-renowned, respected aspect of not just art, but civilization, or damn it, of the presence of God. Outside of the actual pyramids themselves, I don't know of anything that's more recognized around the globe than the bust of King Tut. That's my own personal biased ass opinion. Excuse my French, but I'm going to be biased. But from what I've seen in my little 45 years, I don't know of anything that might be more recognized than the bust of King Tut. Or if we're talking about monuments and structures, I don't know of anything that's more recognized the world now than the pyramids of Kemet. I don't know of any. If there's more, please enlighten me. And I don't know if I'm gonna care anyway, but I'm because like I said, I'm biased. But I have a reason to be biased because when you see that, you're seeing, to me personally, the presence of God, and you're seeing a civilization, and you're seeing a presence of intelligence that there is nowhere else on this planet I feel like you can say that you can see in one particular place. That presence that is that significant, that has that infinite timeline that is undeniable about the wonders of the world. Period. They just found the little whatever they want to say. They found how many stories that go underneath the pyramids. Damn that. Let's figure out the whole process of what's sitting on the surface of the planet with the pyramids that are standing right there with Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure. Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well,
this is
people are always gravitating toward these stories about what's beneath the. They use the word sphinx. It's called the Heru Im Akhet. And they always speculating about what's beneath this, what's beneath there, but they don't even know what they're looking at when they're looking at the object that they look, that they talk about what's underneath it. So, so I want to amplify a little bit about what I was saying about the hand. You go to the temple of Asar, which was built by Seti I, who was the father of Ramses II. So Ramses II and Seti I, they built this temple at a place in Kemet that they now call Abydos, right? And you could go there, you could go through all the different little chapels, but you got different chambers set up for the different Neteru. And you see the Neteru with their hands like this, and you see a Ankh coming from their hand, or you see a Ankh and a wasp coming from their hand, and they put in the hand to the nostril of the human. So you got the divine entity in the form of a set with her hand projected towards the nostril. But it's never like this. But this being did it. It's always with a straight wrist. Okay. And I make that correction in people because I say, well, when you bend your wrist like that, you're breaking your energy. You're cutting off the energy. You have to keep the wrist straight. And you have to keep this part of your hand over like that. And, from being a Tai Chi practitioner, we call this Tai Chi hand. The word Chi is life force. You're positioning your body in such a way that you are causing the life force to circulate. So why would you cut off the circulation of life force by bending your wrist like that? And when you talk to practitioners of Tai Chi, which is an art or a science that emerged out of ancient Kemet, Tai Chi, Qigong, so on and so forth, they tell you, now we don't bend our wrists like this most of the time. It might be a certain, it might, like if I'm doing ward off or I'm doing certain technique, I might bend my wrist in. But when it comes to directing energy, I'm keeping my hand like this. When I'm trying to cultivate energy and move energy and allow energy to heal me, I'm keeping my hand in that way. And so this hand right here, we call this Kemetic hand. And so this is exactly how the hands look when you look at the images. That's why when we go to Kemet, when I take people to Kemet, I try, even though most of them not successful, I try to get them to slow down because they be so excited. And I say, pay attention to the details. You don't never see nobody hand like this. You see their hand like this. And you see life, you see images that represent life force and energy moving from the palm of the hand of the divinity to the nostril of the person. So that person is breathing in that life force, which is coming from the divine source. And so when we close our eyes, cross our legs, and we do our breathing techniques, we do our alternate nostril breathing and so on and so forth, and then we sit, then we become still and we sit in our meditation. That's the most powerful thing you can do. Not smoking weed or smoking tobacco and saying all kind of stuff and and just going through rituals. There's nothing wrong with rituals. There's nothing wrong with all of the things that we do, because we should do all of those things. But the foundation of it all has to be, can I sit down and work my breath? And do I do my movements and postures? That's the foundation of it. So I'm going to say that yoga is the foundation. Before I started to do Tai Chi, I did yoga. Before I started to do martial arts, I did yoga, right? So even when I teach, if you take martial arts, you're going to do some form of yoga to help to improve your martial arts. They may not use the word yoga, but breathing. Every time you throw a blow, when you're doing martial arts, you're using your breath. You're exhaling. That's the breath. The breath can be used in different ways. If I go to the gym and I do a bench press, I'm going to breathe in and I'm going to breathe out. Inhale when it comes back down. Exhale when I push it up, because that gives me power. That's a mechanical way of using the breath. If I'm down in Atlanta or someplace and I'm riding my bike, I got a road bike and I'm going up one of those hills in Atlanta, right? Those hills be like this. And
there's some mountains there.
Yeah, and I'm going to be breathing like, as I'm going up that hill, right? Because I can't just breathe yogically. I can't just say, I can't breathe like that. I gotta get that oxygen. I gotta get a huge amount of oxygen into my body to allow my muscles to operate properly. So because I'm trained in breathing, I'm trained in breath control, I train myself where I can go in the water and I can hold my breath under the water for 5 to 6 minutes, right? That's training. So it's like, do you train yourself? So by training, you can achieve certain things. You can bring yourself up to a certain level. So you have to be able to pay attention. When you travel to Kemet, you look at the images and you see exactly how they hold their hands. And then because you have experience doing other arts and stuff, you know that hand position is something that's being copied throughout time and applied to different traditions of energy work. So then when you get to the point where you see people bending their wrists like that, you be like, well, I don't know why they do that, because that doesn't correspond to energy is supposed to move and circulate. So you have to ask yourself the question, is this something that's legitimate, or is it something somebody put in that needs to be modified? You know, and I ain't trying to make nobody mad, but
No, listen, look. We're really not concerned about who gets mad. like, listen, people not look. Pac, to quote Pac, and I'm gonna shout out to Pac again, man, because Monday was Pac's birthday, and hell, I've been showing love and saluting him since Sunday. Because I know Pac, for me, is he's the epitome. Matter of fact, I think Brother Rod Hayes had equated Pac to being like the King Tut of our lifetime. I can't remember the context and how he said it, but regardless of that, like I looked at Pac just like I look at him like a younger version of Malcolm. Like I rock with Pac heavy, you know, because he showed me things that resonated with me on a godly level. For what everything that you personify, and I feel like every melanated male who represents what the masculine energy of an Asarian energy or entity, or a Heru-esque energy or entity that creates the balance to the Ma'at, to the Aset, to the goddessness of, you know, all of that is the most profound, infinite, immortal presence of the universal prime creator. And I humbly say this, but I'm going to say it emphatically too. If you've been tuned into this channel, you've seen the presence of the creator. Not necessarily because of me, but because of the people that have divinely united and came forth collectively through the process of this thing called ASE, which is the Ashe, that I give thanks just to be a part of this. And it really it's humbling, man. I can't say that enough, because like we said earlier when we started, we don't know when our last day is, and we don't know what's going to be that last breath. But one thing I've committed to since I've been here is that as long as I have a breath in my lung, I'm going to fight, and I'm going to swing, and I'm going to give it everything I got. I'm going to be Tyson in that ring. I'm giving you everything, and I promise you I'm going to give you everything, because I look up to Iron Mike, and Iron Mike is Ogun to me. He's Shango to me. Iron Mike is that. He's the presence of Heru to me. He is what I know we are all capable of being. I've seen it. I've seen what somebody who's a warrior, somebody who's a master of doing what they do. I've seen that because I saw Mike knock out brothers who's way bigger than him, people whose opponents way bigger than him, knock them out quick work, because he had that essence of being a masterful master of ceremonies. Like his art was with his paws, but when he did that, he knew how to connect his paws with them jaws, just like an artist knows how to connect the paint to the walls, you know, or the paint to the canvas. Like he would drop his opponents to the canvas. The creator will do that by any
yeah,
means necessary. So, but we elevate, no. But I'm just saying, like, this is how I see, like, how divine this all is, and I get
yeah.
thanks.
And you know, Mike Tyson, and you know, he was a practitioner. He used technique. He practiced his technique relentlessly before he even got into the ring.
Yes, sir.
You know, he trained his body relentlessly before he got into the ring. And he used technique. You know, when you got an uppercut, when you got a left hook, you got a jab, and all those things are effective because you have practiced them, you have perfected them, and you have spent hours and hours and hours every day perfecting them, not just on Mondays and Wednesdays. And, you know, you practice daily, you know, and you know, that's what we have to, you know, we as Black people, you know, we have to learn how to become relentless. You know, you have to be relentless in your pursuit of your own excellence. You know, I hope I ain't sounding like a commercial for Lexus or something, but you know, but no, I'm just saying. I think they say that in the commercial, but I'm just saying. But it's true. You have to be relentless in your pursuit of excellence. You have to want excellence. You know, you want yourself to be excellent. You know, and so you know, and so Nubia is not older than Kemet. Kemet Kemet in Kush. Kush, the name of Nubia, the word Nubia is a modern word. It's not the original name that they was using. They was using the name Kush.
Kush.
So yeah, Kush or Cush, whatever. They was using the word Kush. And so Kemet and it's not a competition between which one is older and all that kind of stuff, you know.
It's like an older brother and an uncle. It's like a father and a younger brother, or like an older brother and an uncle. Like it's like they're related. Like they're related. There's no beef. Like they all started in the same place. It's just one kind of went one way and another went another way. But either way it goes, they're all still like they're collectively related. There's no division in that.
Everything that became Kemet was originally came from the southern part of what you would call Sudan or Kush. If you go to the museum at the Oriental Institute, I the Institute for the Study of Ancient Cultures, I think they call it now.
Which is in Chicago.
In Chicago.
And I got books from there. Matter of fact, we talked about this. I didn't mean to cut you off, but this where we about to go, I'm gonna go get the book. I'm gonna come off screen because we talked about this. Like we talked about it when we first started building. I remember sending you pictures because I remember I think you took a group to the Chicago Institute, if I'm not mistaken, and you were sending me pictures. And I'm like, I remember sending you pictures. I have books from there because they have, I don't know how they got hold of all that information, but they have a lot of information that talks about the Kemetic and then the Nubian. Like,
they wrote it. They published it in the name of being scholars. But within that museum, they have one of their archaeologists found a incense burner at an area in the south, you know, down in Sudan, down in Nubia, down in Kush, called the Kostul incense burner, because it was at a place called Kostul, Qustol. And this incense burner, it has all of the different Pranic images on it. The king sitting on his throne with the tall crown on his head, holding the images of the king holding the the crook and the flail in his arms, and so on and so forth. Other images that represent what you would call Pharaonic Egypt or Pharaonic Kemet, right? And this incense burner is older than the first dynasty of Kemet. So we know that there is no separation between Kush, Nubia, and Kemet. It's all just an extension of the same. So it's not the matter of which one is older. It's just a matter of that they are connected, that they are an extension from each other. Because the original people that started to move north out of southern Africa, those are the oldest ancestors of the people from Kemet, right? All the way down into southern Africa. That's where the people come from. All along the Hapi River, you got the different groups of individual people. You got everybody along that Nile River, from the Twa people they're the real small people. People use the term pygmy. That's not the right term. They're called Twa, right? Those people are there along the Nile. And then you got Watusi, 7 feet tall. And you got everybody in between. You got long people. You got people with thinner nose and thinner lips. You got people with big nose and big lips. You got tall, you got short. All of those people populated the Nile River, and they moved into this place than people that became Kemet. And so Kemet is the flowering of Nile Valley civilization. Okay. Nile Valley civilization did not start in Kemet. Kemet is the flower of Nile Valley civilization. The so-called Nubians or the Cushites and so on and so forth, the people who lived along the Horn of Africa in what's now called Somalia, and the Ethiopians, all of those people, they were all one people. They're not one began before the other. They're all just one people, you know. And so that's all it is. And so we have to look at it in a unity. We have to also look at the fact that Kemet in Africa is more than just the border of Africa that we see now, that these white people made. Africa should be Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia used to be called South. The only thing that separates the Arabian Peninsula from the rest of Africa is the Suez Canal. That's artificial. There was no Suez Canal until they built that. And so Saudi Arabia is there. When you go eastward from Saudi Arabia, you wind up in India. Those people in India, those are African people, whether they know it or whether we acknowledge it. But they came out of Africa. When I was in Denver this past weekend, I went to an Indian restaurant, and everybody in the restaurant was blacker than me. And they was all from South. I said, "Where are you from?" They said they was from, they're from India, and they black, Then I went to an Ethiopian restaurant the next day, and I couldn't even tell the difference, between the people. In fact, the Indians was probably darker than the Ethiopians, So we need to expand our consciousness to include other parts of the world that we say is not part of Africa. They are part of Africa. Even when you go into Greece, the original people that populated that area of the world, which is now called Greece, those were some black people. So you can use the word proto, P-R-O-T-O, proto-Greece, the original archetype of the Greek people. They were black people, and you can keep on with that. You can keep on with that line of thinking all along the world, Priest Sobek, Ra Heru, so you can keep on with that line of thinking all the way around. So instead of us excluding, other people and places, we need to be inclusive, because originally, even people who look, we might say they don't look like us. How do we look? Are we 4 foot tall like a Twa person, or are we 7'2" like a Watusi person? Are we jet black like somebody from Sudan, or are we lighter skinned like somebody from like some people from all the people in Ethiopia are not light skinned. You got some really, really black people in Ethiopia. So you see the light. If you go to Washington D.C., you see the lighter skinned Ethiopians. But if you go to Ethiopia, you see people jet black. I don't mean brown. I mean they literally are black. So we can't say, but they don't look like us. Well, how do we look? We don't just look one way. And if I see somebody jet black in India, I can't say, well, that person ain't got nothing to do with me because he's in that part of the world over there. We're all connected, and then people talk about being Native American, right? Well, yeah, the original people in every part of the world, whether you're talking about Europe or whether you're talking about the Americas, those original inhabitants were black people who emerged out of Africa and went there. And then as other people came in there, then they may have changed some to some degree, but we know that the original prototype was black, was African, Africoid, whatever term you want to use. So we have to expand our definitions of what we're talking about instead of being like, oh, I'm fighting against this one, I'm fighting against that one, I'm fighting against this, because when you go to Africa, some people, you might be Igbo, you might not like, you know, some Yoruba, or you may be, because everybody got these different ethnic, differences and stuff where they may even have squabbles or, things like that, in different countries,
But if you don't mind me, respectfully, if you don't mind me chiming in, because this is hold on, let me just let the people speak, because that's what I believe in. I believe in receipts. So I'm gonna let the people speak. So shout out to the tribe, man. I appreciate you, Orisha too soon, like, because the people are speaking. Everything you just said, I feel like I've had to, which kind of baffles me, and it really blows my mind. But I've had to kind of talk about that with people who bring that kind of bullshit energy, excuse my French, but to this channel, about whether or not we began in Africa or America. So now I always speak about it from a perspective of what I know or I have receipts for. And at the time, when all that started happening, my research brought me back to humanity began in Africa. So I haven't done any more research since then, in regards to that, in regards to, like, I guess, going back to answering the debates of whether or not older remains have been found on the continent of America, America, Murakaba, whatever you want to call it. It don't matter, because if you really tapped into what we talking about, the universal prime creator, stop playing with me. It is what it is. We talking about frequency. So I'm gonna calm down. I'm gonna calm down real quick and bring that back down. But I'm a nerd, and I'm proud of being a nerd. And I love to study. I love to read. And almost every show I do, whenever certain topics come up, I probably got a book, and I'm a flex on that. I probably got a book that can kind of relate to whatever is being talked about, because I believe in knowledge and information and intellect and wisdom, more than I do about riches and cars and, all whatever. So when you spoke about Nubia and Tasseti and all those things about the Kemetic culture, I had to dig down real quick into my library, and I went and I found something. And I think I might have found what you were speaking about so eloquently, which is called, was it the Castule incense burner? Was that what it was you were talking about, Baba?
Well, stool, yeah.
Okay, so I found something that is receipts about this incense burner, and I got it with me. So if I'm not mistaken, from what I'm holding in this big old nice, sexy, handsome, melanated book, it speaks about the royal A group of Castule, and it also speaks about that incense burner that I'm gonna share for those. I don't know if y'all can see it. Is that close to? Is that the incense burner you was talking about?
Yeah, that's
Right there.
it. That's
Okay.
it.
Okay. So that's what we're talking about. So that goes back before ancient Kemet, right? Or at least the same people we can tie historically.
We gotta use the term. It predates Pharaonic Egypt. It predates the first dynasty.
Hmm.
You
Okay.
understand?
Yes, sir.
So before there was, and so when we talk about Kemet, we say, oh, there was so many 30 something dynasties, right? And there was the first dynasty, and then there was the old kingdom, the middle kingdom, the new kingdom. All of those are terminology, and division that was created by white people.
Hmm.
So when you talk about Pharaonic Egypt and pre Pharaonic Egypt, what does that even mean? The ideas are African, that predates the formation of a country which became Kemet, that predate Tasseti, that predate Kush. Out of this um, energy predates everything that we know about. You had civilization and complex agricultural societies in the area of Africa, which is now called the Sahara Desert. Before the Sahara Desert became a desert, it was lush, vegetative land. And so you have cultures that we can see there. We can see evidence of them from 40,000 years ago. Okay. This is before all this stuff that we're talking about. We have, and so we can see people, and I have an image of people who look like, I have an image from that area that looks like the people are doing a yoga pose, right? So even yoga, the idea of yoga, not the word yoga, but the idea of breathing, relaxing, moving my body, releasing tension from myself. That idea is as old as human beings. I don't care what you call it, it's still what we would call yoga. So we get caught up into so much stuff, instead of just staying with the essence. What is the reality of what we're talking about? I don't care what you call it, So, so we go back a long, long way.
Long days ago.
I've been in caves in South Africa where they found humanid. I'm not saying that these are modern humans, but they were humanid remains of people that were 250,000 years old. Okay.
That part. But real quick, Baba. So I'm pretty sure with you knowing that, I just stumbled upon I've known of it, but just recently I came across some new material in regards to giants. Giants who were recorded history were over 36 feet long in regards to height. Like in circumference, I think the head circumference was like 18 inches or something crazy, with teeth like I don't know, an inch maybe. Anywho, are you familiar with anything that has to do with giants in any of your researches, Baba? I'm just curious.
You gotta talk to my friend Wayne Chandler, because we have this conversation all the time. Not all the time, but we have this conversation periodically.
Yes, sir.
So the thing that we have to be aware of is that there's a lot of fake information out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then being a giant is relative, right? So if I'm 6'2", and I find me a person that's 3 foot 8, and I stand next to them, I'm a damn giant. When I take pictures next to people, and they be like, and they, I'm 6'2", so and I'm not real tall. I'm just 6'2", but they be like 5'5", 5'2", 5'3", and I just look like a big giant next to them. It's weird. So we have to define what is a giant. So we know that there are skeletal remains of a person, of a type of person, a type of being who they call Australopithecus or something like that. Got Australia. It's got Austria or Australia in the first part of it. But that is a modern human, and he was not 30 feet tall. And so when you look at the evidence of, like you look at, we have a genetic disorder called gigantism. That when a person gets over a certain height, it's because of a problem with the thyroid that causes them to grow out of control, but they always have health problems.
Yeah, like either heart issues or like circulation issues, or I've seen that.
They die at an earlier age because they really don't live because they have so many complications. Now, if you have, so you got Australopithecus, however you say it, and so you can't get that mixed in. So if I go to Sudan and I see a Watusi person, wherever they live, and they 7'4", 7'5",
yes, sir.
to me that's a giant.
Yeah, Shaq is a giant to me.
Who?
Shaq, and I'm 6'2".
Well,
I done
Shaq,
been around dudes in the well over the 7-foot club, like, and I'm not a short. I don't feel like I'm a tall dude, but I'm like me and you the same. I feel like we're the same height. I'm 6'2", so depending on what group I'm in, I might seem tall. But if I'm playing ball or I'm around somebody like Shaq, I'm like the little twat person. You know what I mean? So that's a real thing.
so then so think about Shaq, think about Bud Whale, or what are
Right.
the other really short guys?
Muggsy Bogues. I remember Muggsy Bogues like 5'3",
Yeah,
and he was dunking
Muggsy was tiny.
at
But
5'3".
my point is that we have to define what makes a giant. Now, if you could show me the bones of these people, and you could show me that these are human bones, they're not some kind of variation of human, like a gorilla or in the ape family, or like Bigfoot, like the a Yeti or something.
Yes,
But
sir.
then 30 feet tall, to me that's pretty. That's that we're on the planet Earth. We have something called gravity. We have certain types, if you're dealing with physics and physiology, there are certain rules that kind of determine how big an organism can become, right? How big can a person become? How big can a bipedal person become? Your dinosaurs, they weren't walking around like that upright. Your dinosaurs was on 4 legs. So you might have had some huge dinosaurs. You may have had a whale. We got whales, but they live in the ocean. They have buoyancy to their body, even though they breathe air, and stuff like that. So, when for you to for organism like what humans evolved into to stand upright, they had to be changes to our nervous system. They had to be changes to our circulatory system, and so on and so forth, to accommodate us standing up. Lay down on the floor and stand up real fast, and you get dizzy, right? Because your brain, it takes a certain amount of time for that blood to get back to the brain. So when people say that there was giants that was 30 feet tall, I believe there was really tall people, but 30 feet tall is a little bit of a stretch to me. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying that I don't see where the evidence of it is. Now, people say, "Oh, they're covering." They see, "Oh, they're covering up the evidence." Well, I don't know if they cover. I mean, maybe they are covering up the evidence. But if they covered it up, then you don't know that it's true or not. You just going by your opinion. You see what I'm saying? You're just going by, well, everything they say is a lie. So therefore, if they say the giants didn't exist, they just lying. And that's a circular argument that still don't prove anything. Because again, what is a giant? How tall do you have to be called a giant? Can you be as tall as Shaq, Abdul-Jabbar, Wilt Chamberlain? Or, can you be 6'2" standing next to a twi person?
Yeah. Listen, I feel like it's all perspective. Like for real, that's what it boils down to, is perspective. Because you and I would be a giant towards the Twa people, or even amongst the Bogues for that matter, right? But then you and I would also be, I would look at as kind of small compared to a Shaq, or better yet, let's go to Manute Bowl or George Mirasan, or you know what I'm saying, like them 7'7" dudes, Sean Bradley, like 7'6", like. So it's all perspective, depending on like. Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think Manute Bowl got a son named Bobo that's like 7'7", 7'8", ducking on dudes doing crossovers and all that. So it's like it's all perspective, I guess, depending on perspective. But
And so those are modern giants based upon the limit, what appears to be the limit of how tall a modern human can become. So 30 feet tall, Shaq is a foot taller than me.
mm-hmm.
He's 7'2" or whatever. Then you get somebody who's 30 feet tall, just like, that's tall as hell, man. And it's like, how is their what is their bone density? What is their musculature? How does their lungs and heart and circulatory system work? So on and so forth. What is the physiology of that person to be able to be bipedal, to walk upright with a straight back and have bones that can support a 30-foot frame or 30-foot, person, and have heart and lungs and everything that can supply the blood to that huge area of body. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but those are the questions. To me, I believe in science. I don't believe in just, there's a story. There may have been a story. There are stories about giants. You talk about the Nephilim and all that kind of stuff. But who was writing the stories and how tall was they in comparison to the Nephilim? Maybe the Nephilim was 6'2" and they was 5'1".
Yeah. Well, I mean that. I feel like that would be a whole nother conversation and a whole nother episode, because for me, I believe in it only because I've done research on. That's one of those things where there's a lot of things on the show that I won't go into, I won't talk about because I don't have receipts for. But the things that I do, I'm more than willing and wanting to go into. But the giant thing, that's something that I'm confident in, that my research brings me back to, that there are historical references or data out there for that from my own independent research. But that's neither here nor there in regards to what our conversation is. But one of the things I did want to ask you about too, Baba, before we go, is you mentioned something earlier when you talked about the bodies and the differences between having the physical body and the chronological body, or I should say the chronological body and the biological body, right? So we're talking about now the physical.
Chronological aging and biological aging.
Right. So now which one would be the one that would have more of a cap to it, or more of a it's only a certain amount of time, versus the one that would be one that has the potential to have a whole lot of a lot more time?
Well, everybody's been trying to find this formula for immortality where your body would never die. So, but it seems that there's a cap on it, right?
Yes, sir.
So I don't even want to get to be there's certain level of, there's a certain degree of aging that I don't want to even go into, because it's like looking like that and walking around being all weak and stuff, it's like
listen, I don't want to go that far, but the reason why I asked, because when you said that, you actually said a bunch of things. I promise I got a lot of notes here that I took just from the answers that you gave to some of the questions. But when you spoke about the chronological body or the biological body, I personally, this is what I grabbed from it, was that when you talked about the biological body, I personally was like, yo, I could see that as being my physical body, this thing that I'm talking to you now, this meat suit, this, you know what I mean, this flesh, temporary, vehicle that I've been blessed as a spiritual being to be able to navigate through on this, I guess, third dimensional plane, or in this world, or on this planet called Earth, right? But when you spoke about the chronological, when you spoke about that one, that to me equated to the spiritual body. That equated to the oracle.
When I say chronological age, I'm just meaning how many years have you been alive?
Got you.
That's chronology. So that's
so
just I'm 70, 80, 90 years old or whatever. That's the chronological age. But you could be 70, 80, 90 years old, but your biological age may be 30. So you may have the health status of a 30-year-old, even though your age chronologically is 70 or 80 or 90 even, right? But you can still do the things, and your blood pressure, your your arteries, your set of your heart, your lungs, all of those things, your joints, all of those things are in the condition of a much younger person, even though you are advanced in your age.
I got you.
Here,
I got you.
that's what I mean
Yeah.
by biological age versus chronological age.
I got you. No, and I see that. I see what you excuse me, I see that because and I'm sure like the tribe and people who are on the or in the comments would know, but there's like a couple of different ones, but it's like one or two elder sisters who are like in their 70s or 80s, but they're kind of like exploding on social media because they're in the health industry where they're like vegans and they eat healthy and they exercise and work out, but they look like females my age at 45 or even better maybe than some 45-year-olds, but they're like 70, 80 years old, but they clearly have the lifestyle that's attributed to what we spoke about tonight with the eating healthy, eating clean, exercising, meditating, yoga, whatever their practices are. It seems as if they drank from the fountain of youth because they're in 70s and 80s or more, but they look like people who are possibly my age or younger, people who could have given birth to somebody my age or younger. So it's like I've seen that before too. So what about when it comes to like the spiritual aspects of us, I guess in what we would consider this thing called time, because some people look at time in different ways. So when it comes to like us as spiritual beings, and when I speak of spiritual beings, I think about like I feel like the Kemetic builders and the pyramid builders were spiritual beings at a very high level, that probably incarnated into a physical form for a certain amount of time to do physical things or just influence the physical realm, and then still had the capability to do what they did from the spiritual realm. But that's my own little personal, just perspective. So like when it comes to spirituality and spiritual beings or energy or etheric beings who are of energy and frequency and essence and not necessarily like committed to or convicted to this physical apparatus of a body. What do you feel like there's some sort of capabilities or cap to what the potential of longevity or even just I guess influence over situations or circumstances when it comes to like energy and frequency and spiritual bodies or etheric bodies in this thing that we all experience called time?
Well, first of all, let me say this about time.
Yes, sir.
Time is an artificial construct. Time is relative, right? Because just like where you are is 1:55 a.m., where I
Yes,
am 12:55 a.m.
yep.
It's relative. The time is relative to where we are on the planet. So the sun is going to appear where you are before it appears to where I am.
Yes.
Because of the rotation of the earth on its axis, right? So earth is turning. And so we know when the earth turns, it exposes itself to the sun and then it turns away from the sun. And so anybody that's on the earth is going to experience the sun and then experience darkness. And so we as humans, we have figured out that we can divide that into 24 divisions, and we call that 24-hour day.
Yeah.
Okay. So we are on the earth. Now we know that the universe is a big place, right?
Yes,
if
sir.
we offer the earth in my relative position to the sun, to the star that we call the sun, and then my reference point is not as I'm turning on the axis of the earth and being exposed to the sun, my reference point is going to be wherever I'm at. I'm off of the earth. So if I was on another planet within this solar system, let's say I was on Jupiter, and Jupiter is humongous, right? So the time it takes for it to make one rotation is much longer than the time it takes the Earth. So one day on Jupiter is going to be maybe 15 days, I don't know, a whole bunch of days on Earth. You see what I'm saying? So that's the first thing. Time is relative. Time and space is relative. So we are in certain places. So wherever we are in the universe. So from a spiritual perspective, what we have to do is change our perception of time and space by withdrawing our consciousness from the limitation of these cycles that we are experiencing, that we are calling reality. And that's what meditation is. And this is what the ancestors, when you're talking about Kemetic, or whether you're talking about traditional Africa from other parts of Africa, we talking about Europe or whatever, that's what they've been talking about. How do we make this transition in our consciousness so that we become not bound by the limitations of time and space? Okay, so what people do, one of the reasons why people age is that one of the reasons why their bodies break down is that they, in their subconscious mind, they tell themselves, I am this many years old, and so therefore I only got so much more time left to live. So therefore the body gets a message, well, you're about to die, or you on your way to dying. And so don't think like that. I'm not saying that if you change the way that you think that you're not going to ever die, but change the way that you think in order to preserve yourself and preserve your health and your well-being and your resiliency so that you're not moving towards death. You don't perceive of it as moving towards death. You're just moving through life. You're not moving towards a destination that winds up being death. I hope that makes some sense. So from a spiritual perspective, when I go into my meditation, I am withdrawing myself from all the forces on this earth that causes me to age and causes my perception of time to induce myself to age. When I go through my rituals,
yes, sir,
I'm doing the same thing. When I play my drums, when I dance, when I move, when I go into trance, I am withdrawing myself from this reality, from the effects of time and space. Just like I do when I do my meditation. When I do meditate, I can meditate for 5 minutes and it may seem like I was doing it for an hour. I can meditate for an hour, it may seem like I was doing it for 5 hours. Because you lose your perception. Time and space is something that you perceive. You have certain structures in your brain that are conditioned to interpreting time and space, where you are and for how long you've been there, right? And so these sectors of the brain are valuable parts of the brain because they help you as a tool, will help you in terms of locating yourself and having a conception of the past, the present, and the future, and where you're going. How long did it take, and all that kind of stuff. So you have those structures on your brain, but those structures on your brain are conditioned. They are programmed by your experiences as you exist on this planet Earth. And
Yes,
so
sir.
we need to take ourselves from a perception perspective, take ourselves off the earth, so that then we are not living on the earth no more. We are living in another dimension of understanding, right? Because you remember when those people who were stuck out there on the space station and they came back to Earth, and Elon Musk, whatever. They was out there, and then they couldn't get back because all the spaceships wasn't able to bring them back or whatever. Those people lost so much weight. They lost so much bone density, muscle density, so on and so forth. Their bodies aged. The lady, she was all her face was gaunt, her hair had turned gray. They was up there for about maybe 8 months. And so just being off of the earth has profound changes to your body. And so that's the same thing I'm saying about the giants. It is you know that when you go off into space, when you come off of the earth away from gravity, that you're going to be weightless, and there's going to be certain things that's going to happen to your body. So these things to be seen, they can be predicted.
Yeah.
So you can predict what is the physical limitation of a human being achieving in terms of size, And so even a gorilla shorter than us, but he got the strength of what, 200 men or something. All of these things are relative. I don't know. But time and space, it's all just a perception.
That's why I love having these conversations, man, because I ain't gonna lie to you, like before you just said what you said, I had I guess I would say a prejudiced perception of, my personal reality and perspective. But everything you just said, like looking at that and listening to it and absorbing it and like looking at it from an unbiased, opinion and just, as an observer, everything makes sense. And it's like I could see that. You know what I mean? Like, so but like I said, that's why I love having these conversations, because the only reason I said what I said is because I've had that experience with the other side of the story and, research, but I'm not even going to try to debate or dispute what you just said, because that makes sense to me and I get it. Like it does. So it's like, but that's perspective. And to sum it all up, because I love how this conversation went and how I knew it was going to be anywhere, but how I can't wait for the next one. I'm going to leave the crowd with a cliffhanger. To sum it all up, it reminds me of, at the end of the day, it's like, you can't see the picture if you're in the frame, period. So if you're in the frame of thought or if you're in the frame of experience, you can't see everything else that's going on, because all you can see is what you are in. So if you can't see outside, above, below, inside, inner, outer, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're not going to be able to perceive it from that perspective anyways, because regardless of if you had the awareness or the intelligence to do so, if you're in a certain frame, you have capacities, you have limitations of what you have observance to. So like you broke down that barrier and that wall of my own personal observance of what I would view that scenario, because you have a different observance perspective that I'm not going to try to dispute. So that's dope.
Let me finish with this.
Yes, sir.
The entire focus of yoga, the entire ultimate goal of your practice of yoga is to become the observer. That's because you said the word observer earlier. It is to become the observer. The entire, from my perspective, the entirety of African spirituality, spiritual science, where you're talking about ancient Kemet, where you're talking about West Africa, wherever, Southern Africa, is all to assume the position of the observer so that you can see. You want to be the seer, so you can see yourself You want to see yourself, not just be yourself and just be behaving and doing this and doing that. You want to see yourself from above and observe what you are doing so that you can then control what you are doing and control your behaviors, your thoughts. And you can control whether or not your thoughts are being generated by your outside experiences, whether or not you're being conditioned by your experiences that you're having to think and behave in a certain way. But once you become the observer, you can see how your thoughts and behaviors are being formulated so that you can then say, I'm going to make modification to these things because I want to be this way. And that's all that the ancestors was talking about. If I go into trance, it's because I want to become the observer. Because when I'm in that trance, I can see. I am in the world, but I am not of the world. I am in the world observing. There's images of our soul, where I call it being in the world, but not of the world. When you look at the casket in ancient Kemetic, and when they laid the deceased person down in the casket, on the side of the casket, there was a little, where the head was, there was two eyes drawn on the outside of the casket. That represented the idea of being in the world, but not of the world. It allowed them to look out into the world and observe, but at the same time, remain on the spirit side of reality. Okay? When Yasir, let's look at the story of Yasir. Yasir was killed, murdered, and then he was resurrected, right? But when he was resurrected, he told his wife, who resurrected him, he said, I was in such a state of peace when I was in this state called death. When I went to the other side, into the afterlife, there was such a glorious, beautiful experience for me that I am going to remain in the spirit world, but I'm going to still maintain my connection to the physical world. So I'm not going to be affected. Nobody's going to make me angry. Nobody's going to make me sad. Nobody's going to make me depressed because I'm operating from up here. You know, like you mentioned your Ori earlier, right? When you're operating from this, what people is doing down here is not going to be affecting you because you're not putting yourself there. You're putting yourself up here. So you have risen above all of this chaos and stuff down there. That's the entire story of African spirituality and African spiritual science. Put it in a nutshell.
I'm gonna say this. I give thanks for spirit and being obedient, man. But that's why, for those who weren't on the live stream, who are gonna catch the episode like the upload. This is divine. It's dope because I started the show by giving thanks and paying homage, to the elders and to the ancestors. And it was funny because I remember you saying like, I ain't no elder. I feel like I'm 21. I respect that too. I love it too because I've been around, brothers who I would say are more seasoned than myself, such as yourself and actually several others. And I have the utmost gratitude and gratefulness because I just want to sit at the table, man. I just want to listen. And I know that I've been blessed to sit at a lot of them tables, man, and to listen and just give thanks because at 45 years of age and quarter to this third dimensional, earthly, I guess, whatever we want to call this time, There's nothing that I'm more grateful for than to be able to sit and just to listen to the minds of, elders or more seasoned, beings such as yourself. And it's divine in so many different ways, because even like how the show started, it was because of someone else who touched me, who has that experience, who is seasoned, you know what I mean? And I have to pay my homage, because I'm not sitting here today right now if I don't have 45 years of wanting to be, in the presence of minds and intellects such as beings like you. And so I'm grateful, like extremely grateful, because it's not just me that's benefiting from it. It's the globe, the world, and I love it, because as above, so below, as within, so without. And Kemet is going to be a staple of the channel for at least the next maybe 10 to 12 or even more days, because today started one conversation that's going to lead into, several more that's going to pour into the Kemetic culture and its impact on all of culture. And so with that being said, shout out to Baba, Professor Kaba Kabane, and he got a documentary actually that he's dropping on Friday, I think Thursday at midnight, or Friday, this coming Friday. And it's a documentary that he filmed from going to Kemet last year for the summer solstice, and it's going to be releasing this coming Friday. It's called Negas and Kemet, and it's produced by his son Heru Kamine, which is so dope. You know what I mean? So it's like it's divine alignment on so many different levels. And then to have you here to share what you shared tonight, and knowing that I can't wait to look forward to doing what we got to do and what we're going to do in August in Kemet. It's just divine alignment, man. So with that, bye-bye. I want to do exactly what I told you I was going to do, man, which is to get us together and to highlight all the things that you have going on, and to pay homage, to your work. 50 years of doing this work, man. So I want to highlight you and support you, and just share, and do whatever I could do to pay it forward to those who paved the way for young brothers like myself to do this work, man. And I give thanks. So with that, I want to start with the Soul Yoga Fest, and then if we can get into the Kemetic trip in August, before we get out of here tonight, just to really give the tribe the opportunity to really tap in with you on a whole nother level, and to celebrate the work, that you've done on this planet, man. So with that, I'm going to bring that up. So when it comes to the Soul Yoga Fest, man, this is yours. Like I said, I shared it last week when I had the the timeline, miscommunication, but like I said, I want to pay it forward, man. So with this, let's talk about this if you can. Just share a little something with us.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, when we made this, somebody, we never put a phone number or nothing on there. But but that's the Soul Yoga. We do an annual Soul Yoga Fest in Chicago.
Yes, sir.
And it's a free. Now, this is for the dinner. We have an awards dinner, like you was talking about earlier, about recognizing elders and people who have made significant contributions.
Yes,
So
sir.
one of the functions of the Soul Yoga Fest dinner is to recognize certain individuals who may otherwise be relatively unknown and not, acknowledged for the things that they're doing for our community.
Yes, sir.
So we are recognizing, people during that time, like you see it says, celebrating 50 years of commitment by Master Yasir Hotep, but we're also have other people like brother, Staten. Hip hop, we got a husband and wife from Hip Hop Detox, Enoch Muhammad, and his wife are being honored for their contribution. We got Brother Anton Seals Jr., who's being recognized. He is he's over an organization called Grow Greater Inglewood, and he does community gardens and provides food for people. So we have people like that and others too. And then we're going to recognize some of our Kemetic yoga teachers like Derek and Leslie Goodman down in Atlanta. We've been doing a lot of it. They've been carrying the, I've been watching. When I observe what people are doing, and that sort of gives me my information for who needs to be recognized. So we're going to recognize them. And some one of my other old friends, brother who is a master musician, and and people like that. But then on Saturday, the next day, so that's on Friday, July 11th. On Saturday, the next day, is when we're going to have a full contingent of free yoga classes. So Saturday, July 12th, that's when the yoga classes are going to be outside. So we're going to have African dance. We're going to have various types of yoga, martial arts, capoeira. We're going to have Brother Onkaku from Atlanta there. We're going to have Jill Menard from Houston. We're going to have Brother Kwesi Karamoko from DC. Sister Kalita doing belly dance from Chicago. Sister Darlene Blackburn. Leslie and her husband Derek, they're going to do a Kemetic yoga for couples. We're going to have yoga for women. We're going to have Ceremony West come in and do Kemeditation. She's a great artist and songstress, and she's going to be doing singing bowl meditation and so on and so forth. So we're going to have yoga classes for children. So this is all going to be the following day, Saturday, July 11th, or Saturday, July 12th, rather. Saturday, July 12th. And so as you can see up on the screen, it's at Fuller Park Field House. Saturday, July 12th, 2025. 331 West 45th Street, that's in Chicago. And I got 60653. It should be 60609. I put little mistakes on here. We do this every year. And about 2 weeks ago, we had Soul Yoga Fest in Kansas City. We've done it in Kansas City 4 years in a row. We've done it in Kingston, Jamaica twice. We've done it in Las Vegas 3 times. We've done it in South Africa once. We've done it in July. I mean, not in July. In October, we're going to do it in Brazil. So we do an annual tour to Brazil. That's October 17th to the 27th. And so that's going to culminate with our teacher training program that we do. So if you notice on the other flyer, it talked about, we're raising money. We raise money so that we can provide training to people in Kemetic yoga to become teachers who may not be able to afford it, right? And so that's part of our purpose in asking for donations, asking for sponsorship. We're not for-profit organization, so everything that we do, everything you contribute can be deducted, through tax deduction. What else? So again, we go to Kemet in August. That's going to be August 3rd to the 15th. We go to Jamaica, July 19th to July 27th for our teacher training course. And one thing people should see too, like people say often say, oh, I can't afford it, blah, blah. But we now have the ability to apply for, number one, we have payment plans, but we also have the ability where you can use Affirm and Klarna and other payment things where you may qualify for a loan that will pay for your trip, and then you pay the loan back to those people, to the Affirm company or to the Klarna organization. You pay the money back to them over time. You can get up to 12 months, I think, to pay the money back. So it's a good way to finance your trip and make it, make it more affordable, more easy to be able to take care of it. Okay, so in 2025 we started. In 2026 we started a new adventure to go to Gambia and Senegal. And so at the end of that trip, there will also be a Soul Yoga Fest in Gambia.
I share.
Yeah. So
when is that gonna be? Like, do you have a date locked in? Do you have a date locked in for that one?
It's gonna be May of 2026.
That's what's up. Okay. Yeah. No, we definitely gotta yeah, nah, I'm here. Like anything I can do to push it out to the people. Like we already pushing out to the tribe now and all the way up until each and every one of them. I'm here. So I'm ready to do the work to make it happen. I'm looking forward to Kemet though, for real. Like I ain't gonna lie, like I'm extremely excited about that, man. Like for real. That's gonna be big. So family, y'all heard like Klarna, what was it? Affirm, Klarna, and what else? What other ways? Was it another one?
I know Affirm and Klarna, and it might be a third one somewhere.
PayPal might do it too, as a matter of fact, because PayPal, I think they have like paying for or different types of ways that you can pay with them as well. So
yeah,
between those,
PayPal probably got something like that too.
Yeah, that's what's up.
This is just things that some of these companies have put out there to, they don't really charge you too much interest. Sometimes they don't charge you any interest.
Right.
They're good alternatives to just having to walk out the money all at one time.
Yes, sir. Especially now with what's going on in the environment and the climate of the economy, man. It's a lot. It's a lot going on. We're looking at a whole correction on a lot of ways. So, but yeah, I tell you what, I give thanks to you. I give thanks for you taking the time. Like I said, just sharing and dropping the knowledge, and it was definitely a whole master's class tonight, like for real, and we was able to still make it happen after all the attempted adversities and roadblocks and all that stuff that tries to come up in the way of greatness and divinity being displayed or being shared. But we're not gonna let that stop us, man. Not if stand about it, we fall by any means necessary. We're gonna make it happen and make it do what it do. So with that, Baba, I definitely give thanks to you for taking the time, to share with us tonight and drop the jewels. But outside of everything that's going on, besides Soul Fast and the Kemetic trip or anything else, is there anything else you want to share with the tribe before we get out of here?
I think that's enough. I just encourage people to think for themselves and to practice your yoga. You got to get up and do it. I have a YouTube channel, and you could go on YouTube, you can find relaxation, breathing, movements, postures. You can find all of that stuff on YouTube. Kemetic Yoga, youtube.com/Kemetic Yoga, or yoga skills, something like that. So just Google it.
I say. Nah, I'm gonna put it in the description too. Yeah, what I'll do is like every time I have like especially live streams, I go back and I put all the information in the show description as well. So it'll be in there so people can just click on the link, excuse me, to be able to connect to your YouTube channel, your website, the trips, like pretty much everything we got going on. Soul Yoga Fest, like whatever links that I can get access to, I'll put it in the show description and we're gonna make it do to do. And with that, look, I don't want to start nothing, but because I feel like it was all divine alignment, man. Is there any way I can get you to come through to the tribe, man, and share some of this wisdom in the private community with the healing and the Kemetic yoga and all the things that we share tonight, but more like maybe a more intimate, detailed perspective with the small private. I ain't gonna say small. My bad, tribe. We ain't small, but y'all know what I mean. Like the private community, those who support on another level. Is there any way we can get you to come in?
Whatever you do, brother, just tell me, and I'll follow your direction. I'll follow your whatever you request of me. I'm here.
That's what's up.
Just tell me. I'm an obedient soldier. I'm gonna be there. City.
Gotcha. Nah, I appreciate it. That's what's up, man. Yeah, I can't wait to do it because there's a bunch of questions and topics I had that I want to get into that we'll be here all night. But when we get in the private community, I can't wait. Can't wait to hear the answer to some of these questions. But man, I appreciate you. I do, Baba. So
Yeah,
I look
it'd be
forward to it,
nice.
man.
It'd be nice to interact with people and let them, go back. We can go back and forth on certain things, and try to get clarity and so on and so forth, and then I can learn stuff too, because I don't think I know everything, I don't think I hardly know anything really, but I just give my not my opinion as much as my perspective, and then I give what I actually know,
That's it. No, I appreciate it. Same here. Same with me. Like I think there's a couple things that came up tonight. Excuse me, in the comments or just in on the show in general. I won't speak on anything I don't know. Anything I do know, I'll speak on it. Anything I feel like I'm confident in knowing, I definitely speak on. But if I don't know it, I don't want to entertain it because we like to have receipts and make sure that we're doing what what we came here to do. So I know it's divine the way this thing happened tonight. With the way it turned out, versus the way that it's tried to start, with the hiccups and the hurdles and all the things that try to come into I guess trying to block greatness, man. But this was definitely a great conversation and great information. So I give thanks again, Baba. So I definitely appreciate you, and I'll be sharing, all the links in the description, and I'll definitely be reaching out to make sure that we can make it happen again in the very near future. So I give thanks to you and all that you do, and I look forward to maybe even hopefully make it to Soul Fest, but definitely to the Kemetic trip and all things that's going forward. I look forward to doing whatever I could do to make it happen, to highlight it and make it do what it do for you, Baba.
Okay, brother, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Likewise, man.
Really enjoyed the conversation, and I hope I make too many people too mad.
We ain't worried about them. If y'all mad, y'all on the wrong channel. I'm gonna say that. I don't give a damn about them being mad. Look, I won't talk no crap about myself, but it's funny. I was just talking to one of my homeboys earlier. I ain't gonna talk nothing about me, but when it comes to my elders and those who I look up to, who represent, I'm gonna talk that ish. So I don't give a damn if they're mad. Don't go to another channel because look, we salute you. The people who here for the right reasons. It's all love, and we salute everything you do and say. Like we with it. So let's get it. That's what it is with us.
Yeah, just joking. Yes. Okay, cool, brother.
Yes, sir. All right, man. So I appreciate you. So with that being said, family, this has been another episode of the African Spirituality Experience. I'm your host, Orisha Bami. Shout out to Master Yasir, Hotep, and we'll see y'all on the next episode. So we out, y'all, family. We out. Peace.
Peace out.
Ẹni tó gbàgbé ilé sàpò ìyàgbọ́ tẹ́ǹtì ẹni takísà ní tàtàn ò bá padà sílé anítìjàkọ ẹja lọ pé eégún mo sí ẹni gbẹ́rẹ́ ìpàkọ́ forsake not your ancestors and praise your.